welcome back to A.R. Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am Ayanna Abada, and today I am joined by the returning champion, folks. Friend to the podcast. I can't even count on the top of my head the amount of times that he has guest starred on this episode, and we are glad to have him back. Adam Gaffen, say hi to the folks.
Hey, great to be back. It's always a fun time to be here, and love talking with you. And let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's rip right into it. So, before we we're too deep into it, where can people find you? Instagram, website, where can the people connect?
Sure. First place they can go is Cassidychronicles.com. That's my website. They can also find me on Facebook or Instagram as Adam Gaffen. And I love hearing from people, love hearing, answering questions. So you can even email me, adamgaffenauthor@gmail.com.
Very nice. Now, outside of this little boom messing up on me, what is new for the folks? So for the people that are the uninitiated, right? For the people that are somehow living under a rock and aren't aware, Adam is the author of the Cassidy Chronicles. 4 books out. Is the 4th audiobook out as well?
Okay, so there are 4 audiobooks. The 5th print book is out as well, and the audiobook is being recorded. The narrator, Veronica Wiley, who is really nailing these characters. I mean, she's got them down. I mean, perfectly. She is about halfway done recording the 5th book. So we're hoping to have that out by the end of October if ACX and Audible are quick enough about the approval. The way she's cranking out the episodes, though, no problem on her end.
Nice. So what do you say? What would you think as far as your fan base goes right now? Where is the division right now? Is it more excitement for the audiobook or is it more excitement for the print book, would you say?
Oh, that's a tough one. The print books, the ebooks are, of course, the gateway to the universe. So you get into those, but the audiobooks, and I've had 2 narrators now, and they both did a fabulous job. Jane Weatherstone did the first 3 books, and Veronica did the 4th book, and she's working on the 5th one. And they bring everything to life. There's nothing quite like hearing the words that you wrote, somebody else reading them and putting the emotion into them, and really, like I said, bringing them to life, bringing the people to life, rather than just, words on a page. But if you're excited about print books, Amazon has just started doing a wide-scale beta test of hardcover books. So all 5 of the Cassidy novels are now available in hardcover. And that happened just in the past week.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm actually getting, I'm in the works of finalizing the allegory of the end and put it for hardcover. Really exciting that Amazon is doing all the different things that Amazon is doing. The big one that seems to be really getting a lot of buzz is the Kindle Vella scene. So how do you feel about that inclusion in the Amazon sphere and the Amazon market as far as reading and books go?
I think it's a really clever idea. There is a Cassidy story in Kindle Vella. It's called Memories of Ayanna, because my main characters have known each other since childhood. They've been best friends since childhood. They live next door to each other, and they grew up together. And I thought it would be fun to tell some of those stories on Kindle Vella. It's a great medium for people who love the anticipation. Okay, anybody can go out and pick up a book and sit down and just read right through it. Okay. There's no, if you don't want to hold back, you don't have to. You can just open it up and plow right through. But if you're the kind of person who really likes that tingle of anticipation, that, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next. Ooh, I got to wait for it. Before Netflix and before Hulu, would drop an entire season of a show at once, and you could sit there and binge watch all of it. And it was, okay, here you go. Here's what's happening this week. And you go through the whole episode for the week. And it ends, and it's like, oh my God, I need to know what happens next. I gotta wait a week. And that tension, there's certainly something, it's almost nostalgic about it, going, oh, I have to wait. Okay, all right. I can do this. I can wait. Yeah, no problem. No problem here. I can wait. Yeah, I got this. When is it coming out? 6 more days. But there are a lot of really talented writers there. I've read and sampled a bit, because the first 3 episodes of any Kindle Vella story, the first 3 episodes are all free. I mean, brilliant on Amazon's part. First 3 episodes free, get you in there, get you hooked. And then Amazon is giving you another 200 tokens to unlock more episodes. So, with some of these shorter Kindle Vellas, you can actually read through all of them, and it won't cost you a penny. And the tokens are cheap too. I mean, you get a couple thousand tokens for $15 or something like that. Yeah, and it's 1 token for every 100 words. So if an author puts up a 2,000 word episode, which is a bit on the long side, a lot of the ones I've seen tend to be in the 1,000 to 1,200, 1,500 range. But let's say, it's a 2,000 word episode, so it's 20 tokens. You get 10 of those, that length, for free with those first 200 tokens. And then after that, if you're a reader, you're probably going to end up spending less to read an entire Kindle Vella story than you would to go buy the book.
Wow. Now, how do you translate into that? Do you think that the people that are coming in to read Memories of Ileana, which again, out now on Kindle Vella, start reading it, get the backstory of the whole Cassidy Chronicles, it's awesome concept. I mean, who doesn't love a good deep dive into your favorite characters? I think that's awesome. But do you think that translates into any people reading? Like, how do you think that goes? Do you think that people that pick up the book immediately hop onto the Vella? Do you think that people that hop onto the Vella, like, are you seeing any kind of constant gains as you put these new ventures out? Does the audiobook sales influence the print sales to influence the Vella? Like, how does it work out? Have you seen any correlation between those?
There's definitely a correlation. It's a very slow correlation, because Kindle Vella is still technically in beta testing. It's only available in the US, and if you want to see it on your phone, you have to have an Apple phone, because they only have it on the iOS. They only have it on that operating system. They don't have Kindle Vella available yet for Android. So you can look at it on your computer. There is a way to get around it on your Android phone. If you have the Amazon app on your phone and you go to Kindle Vella through your Amazon app, then you can read a story. You'll just call it up that way. So there is a workaround, but it's not as convenient as having the Audible app or having the Kindle app. So I think when all of the bugs are worked out, and that's why they do a beta test, right? They've got to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And it's available for Android, and it's available right now. It's also only available in the US. It's not available internationally. So I think when it's available more widely, then it's going to have a bigger impact for everybody. I may yet, drop a more mainline Cassidyverse story into Kindle Vella with, set not in the past, but more congruent to the novels, because there are lots of stories that just don't get told. I mean, the novels are 100,000 words plus, every single one of them. If I told all the stories in all of the novels, you wouldn't be able to pick them up. So I may do that after I wrap up doing Memories of Ayanna. But right now, because Memories of Ayanna, all right, the Vella is actually being written from the point of view of Kendra. So it's written in first person from her point of view. So she's looking back at her childhood with Ayanna, which gives it a whole different feel from any of the novels. The novels all written in the third person, the omniscient narrator kind of thing. And I'm having fun writing the memories because it's totally different from the other stuff that's out there.
It actually led in, you kind of basically just answered the question I was about to follow up with, which I was going to ask if you have taken any artistic liberties, in a sense, with your writing style, with the Vella thing. It's one thing that I've noticed that I'm really excited for my whole thing that I'm doing with Kindle Vella, that I'm just, because of the setting, because of the format, I'm able to just play around with a new type of narrative, a new type of just way of saying the story, but with explaining a world that you're already familiar, but in a different point of view, in a different vista, through a different set of eyes. So have you faced any challenges with that? And do you feel like there's anything that you like so much about this new writing style that it almost like it almost makes you want to change up your writing for future books?
I wouldn't go that far, because the Cassidy novels have been, they're so broad. They take place, all across the inner system, and they take place, at a couple of nearby stars. And there's a cast of characters in the back of the books. I list the cast of characters, and these lists are 7-8 pages long. So the advantage to writing from that omniscient narrator point of view is you can present everything that's going on, or at least everything that you want to present to the reader. You can present it all without having to worry about, well, how did that person know it?
Mm.
How does this person know this if it was happening 10 light years away at the same time, and they're telling the story in the present tense as stuff that's happening to them right now? They wouldn't. So with the Vella, because she's looking back, the perspective is she's writing this from further in her own timeline, past the events in the Cassidy novels, looking way back in her timeline to when she was growing up. So she's got a really clear picture, and so she's telling things that she knows, and it's all about her and Ayanna. Those two, they get into so much trouble. I mean, a genius and a troublemaker, and they're best friends. What could possibly go wrong?
Now, what do you think? Because it's actually really funny that basically the opposite happened to me. Allegory of the End was written in the first person point of view, and then Iris, I'm writing it in the more narrative tone, and I feel the exact same way. It's like, oh man, the amount of things that like I had to omit from this work that I can just like go balls in on for this one. It feels so much more, I guess, loose, and like your artistic liberties with it are just sky high. You can do whatever you want. If you feel like commenting from the point of view of some random janitor because it's just interesting at that point, you can do that, and then just hop right back to your character and just like what they're going through and their trials, their emotions. So with that in mind, 5 print books out, 4 audiobooks, Kindle novella in the works. What is the future for Cassidy Chronicles? Are you gonna keep on elaborating on the memories of Ileana? Is it just gonna be a continual serialization that's just aimed at that type of development? You know, the same way. I'm trying to think back, but like, you know, in TV shows that like they have children, the children never grow up type of sense. You know what I mean? Like it's just a continual story of like that almost time in their life. Are you gonna do something like that, or is it gonna be continual that you're gonna everything is gonna come together like a very long drawn out Quentin Tarantino movie, like where like eventually, you know, like the Ileana is gonna get to the very tip of what started off in the first book of Cassidy's Chronicles, and then it all comes together. Like, how do you plan on doing that?
So Ayanna's story, and which is Kendra's story, um, what I'm writing is from the earliest she can remember and through the end of high school. That's my plan. So however many episodes that is, that's how many episodes it's going to be. When I get done with that, I will. I'm also going to release those as a compilation, as a novel, um, for the people who would rather just sit down and read everything right through. Um, but that's a ways in the future. But it has a definite end because getting into the backstory here, when they graduated high school, they had this last summer together, and then Kendra went off to the California Confederacy to do her thing, and Ayanna went off to the People's Republic of Massachusetts to MIT to pursue her studies. And they separated for about 12 years. So they'll have their own stories that could be told. Ayanna's, I don't really have a sense of anything real exciting happening to her. I mean, during that time that she was studying and then establishing herself as a serious researcher, she didn't really lead an exciting life. Kendra had a more eventful life, and I suspect that so I can see writing more of Kendra's stories. Um, and some of that is actually coming out now in her newsletter. I put out 2 newsletters every other week. One comes from me, which is, the this is what's happening, here's, here are new releases coming up, here's where you can go find stuff, here are some other authors that I think you'd enjoy, stuff like that. Kendra's newsletter, it's her telling her own stories, and it's another way for her stories to get out there. As for how it's going to integrate into the Cassidyverse as a whole, the way I see it right now, there are going to be 2 main branches going from where I've left off with the 5th novel. The first branch is going to be what the Cassidys are doing, and that's going to be plenty enough to write about. The other branch are going to be the stories of the other people in this expanded universe. One that I'm working on right now, which has a ways to go, but it's set a few years after the events in these novels, and other than the first couple chapters, which are the setup chapters, which are the here's the introduction to the universe chapters, Kendra and Ayanna don't feature in it at all. It's about other characters doing other things. So there are all sorts of stories that I can tell there.
Now, you have your main characters of Cassidy and Ileana, and you obviously put a lot of heart and soul into those characters. Has there been any characters that you've developed in response to a plot or just whatever reason that you've fallen in love with, honestly, that you wish that you can kind of expand on a little bit more, and you have plans to later on as the series progresses?
Well, I would say the character that most closely falls to that is Daniela Garcia Kay. Um, she she was written in to the second novel, The Road to the Stars, because I take classes at Arizona State University, and they have a website and Facebook group and all that for fellow Sun Devils. And so I've talked to other Sun Devils, and some of them have been really enthusiastic about the books. Great, wonderful. The ones who've been really enthusiastic have said, hey, do you want me to use your name in the book? And there was this one girl who was Justina Brianna Daniela Garcia. And she said, oh, yes, yes. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to make you triplets. So there's a Justina Garcia, Brianna Garcia, and Daniela Garcia. And they're all triplets. They're triplets, and they're all pilots of the Wolf, which is think of it as a shuttle. And they show up in the second novel. Daniela, because of one little feature I gave her in that first appearance, she's cross-trained as a pilot and an engineer. So in the third book, when they introduce a fighter, which can only seat one person, they needed somebody who could do both piloting and engineering. That would be Daniela. She's the only one who's cross-trained that way to that degree, fully cross-trained. So she became the lead pilot for the Direwolves, and so she's gotten a much bigger role. And by the fifth book, she is as important a character as Cass or Ken. Either one of I could not have written the fifth book without her in it. Just she's that important. So yeah, I can see more stories for her, but all of these characters, the longer they go on, assuming they survive, there's so much that I can take for each one and either jump backwards because they all have stories before they came in, or take it from where I leave off the last time you see them and go forward with them. So the possibilities are pretty much limitless. And this is one thing I'd like to do. I would love to get other authors to get their takes on some of these characters. Say, okay, get a
guest author.
Get somebody who's really good, a guest author. Eric Flint has been brilliant about this with his 1632 series. He created it. He brought in David Weber to help him write some of the mainline books, and then it just spawned, I don't even know how many dozen books, which are all happening in this, in his 1632 universe. I would love to get, for example, between now and when the books take place, the United States breaks into a dozen countries, right? And it's not always peaceful. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes there's a lot of, political back and forth going on. I'd love to get somebody who can write a good political thriller to write about some of these breakups. I'd love to get somebody who is good at writing a, good solid military book to write about, like the second the Second Civil War between the United States and the new Confederacy. Um, get an author in. There are relationships that are going on in these books all the time. They're not front and center because it's not a romance, but these relationships play into the books. I mean, they affect how the characters react. If they're worrying about their spouse, if they're worrying about their significant other, that changes how they behave. So, I'd be open to getting, a romance author in there to explore some of these relationships. The first captain, the captain of the first starship, she gets recruited from the Northern Imperium Navy. Okay, tell me that story. Tell me how she came up through the ranks and all the things that happened to her in the Navy before Kendra dropped in and said, "Hey, you want a job? I got a starship that needs a captain." So, I'd love to get more people and get this universe explored more broadly.
I was actually just talking to an author about that today. It's funny how energy just kind of shifts around like that around the universe, huh? It was the exact same idea. We were talking about Kindle, and then we just, as he said something, it was like an epiphany of like, oh man, like, the whole awesome thing about making episodic type of thing like that Bella could be, right? Where it's that you obviously can make it a lingering plot, something in the background that does like tie everything together, but for the most part, it can just be a reintroduction of the same characters in different environments, different storylines, however you want to do it. The cool thing about that is that, like, you look at a show like, Malcolm in the Middle, for example, which is for the most part episodic. The characters grow and there's like things that ricochet from season to season, but for the most part, it's just episodic. There's not a clear linear thing that you need to watch episode 1 to understand what's happening in episode 5. The cool thing about that is that if you look at shows like that, it shows like just any type of sitcom from that era, even like, ER, their General Hospital, things like that. If you look, they have different directors, different writers every time, and they have guest stars. Quentin Tarantino famously directed an episode of Law and Order one time. I was just watching Malcolm Middle. The reason I brought that up, it was directed by Joe Russo, the brothers responsible behind Marvel movies. The people that literally wrote the Infinity War, helped write the Infinity War saga, was writing Malcolm in the Middle like 10 years ago. So I love the idea of bringing the guest author and just being able to take your lore, your world that you've developed, and just take it in a different branch that you have. I think that's like such a crazy idea. And I was just talking to him. The cool thing about that is that I feel like it cross promotes writing, right? Because let's say that you do an episode, I do an episode of whatever. Maybe in the future you already switched to a new Vela sphere, revolved more around the cast and Ken, as you said, kind of more congruent with like the current things that's happening in the novelizations, right? If I go over and I do an episode of that, you do an episode of Allegory of the End. Now the people that are interested, or whatever I'm doing, the people that are interested in my work go to yours, and then vice versa, and then you keep on doing those type of things where like maybe every season you have a guest author, and I feel like everything just kind of exponentially grows off of that, which I think again is just one of those really interesting aspects, not from just being able to almost like have that awesome feeling of like, oh wow, I wonder how a romance author is going to take this one little plot line that I developed for like book 2 just out of a whim. I wonder like how crazy they can develop that into their own plot. But it's also a thing that we all kind of grow from it, because there's nothing better than challenging yourself. That's what this craft is. It's a muscle memory. Just the more we go and the more we can expand ourselves and just challenge ourselves, that's what makes this awesome,
Absolutely. No, that's a fantastic analogy. I mean, and they're going to see things that I don't see, and I'm going to see things that they don't. They're going to have a different take on a character, and really bring them to life, and give them the attention that they deserve. That's one of the reasons that this next the next one I'm working on, you know, most of the major characters in this one have appeared in the other books, but they weren't major characters then. You know, they were secondary characters. You know, a little bit of fleshing out, a little bit of, you know, personality development, but nothing much. So now we get to see more of what's happened to them.
Now, I feel like that ties a little bit into what my next question was going to be, which is we're both heavily fans of sci-fi, but I do feel like we have talked about enough about fantasy to say that we also get a little bit of inspiration from that. I mean, the names of the thing were Direwolf, which is a pretty fantastical term. So I'm assuming a little bit of that inspiration comes from a little bit of like the high fantasy type of, I guess, like more terrestrial based fantasies as opposed to like the sci-fi epic type of fantasies. So where do you derive your inspiration from your following storylines? You've written 5 books now and a thing. What is the new thing keeping you going? I think that's what makes sci-fi so interesting. The fact that like it's science fiction and science grows every year. So there's always a new type of thing to hit your wagon on. It's like, oh, imagine if this to happen, or like, you know, all it takes is one good article on science.com that you see the headline on when you're clicking on new tabs on Google Chrome, you know, and that's and that's enough to get your mind going. Is there anything that has kind of like salivated that side of your brain, I guess, if I want to put it in the most disgusting way ever?
Okay, so Direwolves, you and I have discussed in other places and here as well. You know, Game of Thrones I never got into it. I didn't have HBO when it was out, so I never got into it. But enough of it is seeped into pop culture that, you know, okay, the word direwolf is out there, and I had named the shuttles, you know, wolves. That's what Kendra named them. They were wolves. And after I want to keep saying the first book. It's not the first book. It's the second book. It's the first book in the Artemis War, and it's where the story really gets going. It's the road to the stars. Anyways, so by the end of that book, Kendra has discovered that what she thought were nice, tough little ships really weren't adequate for what has started to develop, which is, you know, an all-out war with the Artemis colony and the Solarian Union. And here are these little 30-meter shuttles that have a pilot and an engineer and, you know, a couple of little phased particle cannons. They don't really stand up to it. So she decided she needs something nastier. She needs a spice fighter, you know, something designed just, you know,
or
the
combat
biggest gun possible. Yeah, designed for combat. You know, an eggshells armed with a sledgehammer. So she comes up with a name, you know,
that's funny.
the name Direwolves.
Because eggshells are pretty strong, and depending on how you're trying to crush them.
Yeah, if you hard-boil the egg first, especially. So, you know, she comes up with direwolves because they're nastier than the wolves. So, all right, so this is a conceit that I wrote into Kendra's character, again, way back in the first book. And she has been hooked on our pop culture. She is as familiar with the TV shows and movies of the 20 years around the turn of the millennium as anybody. I mean, you know, she knows who Captain Marvel is. She knows, you know, what Babylon 5 is. She knows, Um, you know, she sucked it up from a really young age. And so since she's the one who's doing all the dreaming, since she's the one who's pushing humanity out into space, she's the one who's tapping back into her own memories of our pop culture to get her inspirations. So, it's all about it's about exploration for her. It's about getting out there, getting humanity out to the stars. She is a big believer in the Robert Heinlein line. The earth is too fragile a basket for mankind to keep all of its eggs in. So she wants to get people 10 light years away, 100 light years away, 1,000 light years away, get colonies going, get out there and see what's out there. And her ship designs, in as much as she influences them, because she's the one who's paying for them, she's not subtle when it comes to wielding the power that she has. She's like, okay, I'm paying for this. It's gonna be, I'm naming it what I want to name it. It's going to do what I want it to do, unless you can tell me it absolutely won't work. So the next novel is on a starship which is designed for real long-term deep space missions. I mean, we're talking, this one is headed out to a star, 31 Kepler, which is 5,800 light years away. And even at their best cruising speed, it's going to take them over 2 months to get there. And they're going to be gone on these missions for they're planned to be gone for 3 years. The ship is 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide, and almost a kilometer from top to bottom. 4,000 people live aboard this ship. It's massive, and this is just a result of her dreams. It's like, look, we need something big in order to do the exploration, right? We need something that is just about self-sufficient so that it can be out there and not have to come back home every 6 months, or even every year to resupply. We need something that's just going to go and do and go as far as it can and then come back.
Now, this is something that I wish I had asked every science fiction author that's come over here and I've crossed paths with. The whole thing about space is that there is, till this day, so much unknown, right? It is the final frontier. It is, I mean, it was kind of funny because even water, we still don't even know, 75% still undiscovered on our own planet. But outside of that, there's even a larger percent that we don't know about space. Have you taken any, again, artistic liberties with anything in space? Have you done anything that's like, oh, well, I mean, there's nobody says that, no. So, I mean, I can write whatever I want. Have you done anything like that yet?
I haven't done anything like that yet. Everything that is out there is at least possible, plausible. I'm starting to, with this new one, I'm starting to get into the realm of they're going to be so far away that we really don't know what's out there.
Like space creatures, we don't space storms. I mean, those are all pourquoi no?
Not even so much that as
space microbes that attached to the hull of a spaceship and just eat away like termites. I mean, limitless.
Yeah, in the fourth and fifth books, a lot of the exploration which is going on is out at 40 Eridani, and we know that there are planets around 40 Eridani A. We know this. We've confirmed it. So I've created a dual planet system around Forty Eridani A, and they are slightly larger than Earth, but they are very Earth-like, and much to everybody's surprise, when they get there, they discover that, hey, look at that, it's chlorophyll. There's life down there. And these planets orbit each other every 10.5 days. They are tidally locked, so the same side faces each other all the time, which means that a day is 10.5 days long, which means nighttime lasts a little over 5 days and daytime lasts a little over 5 days, which results in some really weird evolutionary patterns. You can't sleep for 5.5 days. You can't be awake for 5.5 days. And I also tap into a couple of theories. There is the Silurian hypothesis and the theory of panspermia, which are kind of tied together. And a lot of people, there's a huge arguments, right? In the real scientific community about whether or not these are even, whether they're possible, plausible. You're completely making stuff up. But so I'm taking those and saying, okay, 65, 70 million years ago, the dinosaurs had been around for a long time. They were warm-blooded. They had every chance to evolve into something intelligent. We have no idea. The planet that we live on today is so different from the planet 65 million years ago that you could have had a civilization as advanced as we have right now, and there would be no trace of it whatsoever on the planet today. None. 65 million years ago, India was an island. Just to give you an idea, 20 million years ago, you could walk from London to Paris and not get your feet wet. So just the volcanic activity on this planet and the constant churning of the crust means that anything that an advanced civilization left has been ground back into its constituent molecules by now. If we happen to find a piece of steel from 65 million years ago, we wouldn't, because it would have rusted. It would have been driven back down 5 miles below the ground and melted and come back up in lava and been scattered around as iron. It's done, it's gone. So once you posit that, it's not impossible to believe that they got to the point that maybe even more advanced than we are now, and they were doing the exploration I'm writing about humanity doing 100 years from now. They're trying to get out to the stars.
Oh my God. And especially if you put that together with like the other theory of advanced light travel, like let's say that we finally get like an exploration crew out there in the year 2150, and we sent them out to whatever you want, Andromeda, whatever you want. We just sent somebody out. It's very possible that even 10-15 years later, the space engineering that we'll have at our fingertips will be so much more advanced than what they released in 2150, that when we re-release another space crew only 10-15 years after, they'll beat them, and that like it'll be a continual thing like that. So imagine if you put those two ideas together and we go out to space and we meet dinosaur astronauts that are like, oh shit, what? Earth? Oh, I'm from Earth. Oh my God, Francis, they're from Earth too. like, can you imagine that? Like, oh my God. And like, even just like how, like, I don't know, because I don't think any human would buy that immediately. If we just saw alien astronauts, like I feel like that would be like immediate war at first. Like I don't know. That'd be an interesting. Even that in itself is like an interesting plot line. My God, the amount of things that just can be like ricocheted off, like it really is phenomenal. So, how much do you plan on playing around with those type of aspects in the future? What is next? Is there a Cassidy 6 coming out? What is the future for everything going on?
So right now, the work in progress is focused around. I'll even tell you the name of the ship. It's the TFS Christopher J. Pike. It's an exploration vessel, and the I fully anticipate this being another branch on its own, because they're off on one of these 3-year missions, and 3 years, go out, don't come back for 3 years. So they're out, they're on their own, and the personalities, I mean, I'm exploring some personality conflicts and some interpersonal issues going on. So that one's going to take a while. I'm not sure what the next one is going to be, featuring Cass and Ken. I'm working on this one first. So, but there will be more. I mean, be assured there will be more. And there are going to be short stories I have, and novellas and novelettes. When I get around to it, I will put all of those into an anthology. That's probably something for 2022. Don't quite have enough yet. Nearly, but not quite. And I want to give my fans a chance to pick up. I just put out an omnibus edition, which is the 5 novels plus an exclusive novelette called The Martian Gambit, which is set after the 5th novel, and it kind of explores the whole idea of, let's take one of the more minor characters and give them their own stage. So
Yeah, I was typing that up last time that we had our little conversation that we were guesting. I mean, that is just, I mean, a phenomenal concept in itself. That's such a, first of all, from an author standpoint, that must feel phenomenal. Not only being able to hold one book of yours, but being able to hold a collection. And the fact that you throw in that little extra tidbit, I always thought that just such a goddamn awesome idea. We are unfortunately hitting the end of this. This is, and I'm glad that I had that to get you back on, because this is the October month of homies, my birthday month, and I just decided to do it. Every episode this month is going to be of like the OGs, the people that have been on, like real friends of the pod, so we can just come on and talk shit, have a good time. And this is glad that you're included in that. Always a great chat, always just mind busting things. I mean, that whole idea, 60 million years, huh? Man, the amount of things that I'm going to be able to just sit back on now. I've just lost 2 hours of sleep on that one. Thanks. Could have needed those hours too. Thanks,
here,
Adam.
You're very welcome. Here you go. I'll throw one more for you. All right. So because the planets Freyr and Freya, all right, they're tidally locked. Five days of darkness, 5 days of light. You can't sleep through all of that. So you're going to have animals that are sleeping, that are vulnerable, right? So they can't see anything. It's hard to hear something. You don't always wake up when you hear something. If you don't wake up when and when there's a predator, you're going to wake up dead, right? You're not going to reproduce. End of your line. So as part of the evolutionary pressure here, I am saying that these animals have evolved telepathy so that they detect other minds as they close in, because you can't shield your mind. You can't close it down, or maybe you can. Haven't
Especially these
really
days.
dove into that yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's an app called TikTok.
haven't
I don't know
really
if you
dove
heard of
into
it before.
that yet. So the animals tend to be telepathic. It was, it's a survival mechanism. It's an evolutionary adaptation to the fact that they're on a planet that has 5 days of darkness. So you have telepathic animals. And doesn't that just blow the minds of the people who are down there going, wait, what? I'm supposed to just think at this thing?
No, I mean, my God, the amount of different things that can be derived from that. I'm telling you, folks, you need to explore this man's mind through his books. The omnibus edition is out. Cassidy Chronicles 1 through 5, audiobooks 1 through 4, with the 5th one on its way. He has the Kindle Vella wrapped up. You need to check the man out. The CassidyChronicles.com has everything you need. Instagram, you just Google Adam Gaffen. I promise you he has enough out there. It will pop up. Tried and tested, scientific facts, okay? Do what you got to do. Support the man. I'm telling you, month of the homies. Say that from the bottom of my heart. Adam, last words for the people.
So I will end with something that, a piece of advice from Kendra. She was talking to the leader of, she's in negotiations with somebody, and she just made this outrageous request. Okay, she's basically asked them to change sides in the middle of a war. Just come right out and ask. And this leader says, what are you doing? She goes, hey, if I don't ask you, you can't say yes. I think I inadvertently stumbled upon something there. My wife, who's a life coach, has just grabbed this and run with it, because it works.
Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. If you don't ask, the other person can't say yes. So, and one last thing, if you go to CassidyChronicles.com, there is a page which has nothing but free stuff on it, including a link to get, absolutely free, including a link where you can get The Road to the Stars, which is volume 2 in the Cassidy Chronicles. You can get The Road to the Stars free.
Buddy. Folks, what else do you want? Huh? This Halloween season, ain't no tricks from the A.R.'s Tales podcast, only treats. You heard it here first. All right. What else do you want? This is the end of the podcast, A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T. podcast. I've been A.R., and it has been my absolute pleasure to have this man to either the left or right of me, however this goddamn video renders. Adam Gaffen, the man, the myth, the legend, and the author of those myths and those legends. Okay? Cassidy Chronicles, do what you got to do to pick it up, support the author. This is the end of the podcast. Check with us next Monday for another homie episode. You already know. Peace out, yo.